Hey, welcome to another episode of the Icarus Idea. A few days ago, we asked you on our Instagram whether you would consider doing a PhD after industrial design engineering, and a astonishing 80% of the people that listened to the Icarus Idea said that they would never consider doing a PhD after industrial design. So that is why today we are talking to someone who did decide to do a PhD. As always, there will be some interesting parts, there will be some fun parts, just your usual classic Icarus Idea episode. And well, yeah, once again, let us know what you think after you've listened to the episode, and yeah, hope you enjoy. Hey, welcome and thank you for listening to the Icarus Idea. My name, as always, is Joris, and I'm here with two other people, one of which is Bram. And Bram, could you, as always, introduce our PhD guest today?
Welcome back, everyone. And if you've been following us for a while, you know that our goal is to find out what we can do after graduating. And we do this by going far and wide to find the most interesting examples, such as a Lego designer, a headphone manufacturer, or starting your startup company. However, there's also a cool option which has been under our noses the whole time, even at our own university, and that is doing a PhD. Now, to be fair, we don't really know much about a PhD. We had a feeling that IDE'ers don't really get much information about it. So that's why today we invited Henrike, as she's an industrial designer who's doing her PhD at the University of Twente. She's going to tell us all about her PhD in sustainable asset management, and even what it's like to do a PhD. So welcome, Henrike Holwerda.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah.
Right.
I'm really enjoying my time until now.
the first 4 minutes and 30 seconds. All right. Well, let's get into the whole PhD story right away. I wrote a little summary of what a PhD is. I think. Let me just read it out loud from the screen. So, a PhD is a 4-year during research at the university within a specific area of expertise, I assume. So it's much more academic than going into a company. Some people call it getting paid for going to university. And if you manage to write 3 papers in those 4 years, you are deemed worthy of obtaining a doctor's title. Is that how you would describe doing a PhD as well?
Well, I don't agree necessarily with getting paid for working at university.
Okay.
Or staying at university. It feels a bit like you need an excuse for not entering business life yet, but still wanting to get paid. But there's more motivation in me than that.
Well, then we could just get right to the first question, I guess. Why? To be honest, I don't think Bram and I are very likely to do a PhD. So we wrote the question in the following way. Why would you do a PhD? Why? No, but seriously, why did you, what was your motivation to do a PhD?
Yeah, because you already did a project at a company before, right?
Indeed, yes. I worked in a company for 2 years after my master's, but I already considered doing a PhD during my studies. I'm not sure why, but my dad did the PhD, so maybe that's what triggered me in the first case. And I really like doing research and doing things really structured and going in depth. But when I ended or finished my master's, I felt more like, well, I learned enough at the university. Now I want to learn real things in business life. So that's why I chose around that time to go into business life. But during my work the previous years, it really triggered me once in a while doing a PhD. I really like the dynamics that are in an organization in the real life. At some moment you lose the going into depth. And I think especially as an industrial design engineer, you tend to stay on the surface, to look from an holistic point of view at things. And it prevented me to sometimes, when it's needed, to go in depth in a specific thing, really. And that's what's really possible when doing a PhD. That allows you to go in depth into a specific field. as you already said in the introduction. And unfortunately, my job was ended. So I came across the opportunity to start a PhD. And then I thought, well, if I don't do it now, I will probably never do it. So why not? Yeah.
Cool.
I'm under the impression that you have to, if you want to do a PhD, then you have to get offered a PhD position by the university, right?
Not necessarily, but that's the most logical route indeed. Yeah. You
Do
can also start your own PhD project, but then you have to find funding yourself. So that's way more difficult.
That sounds like a fun activity.
Yeah, and you need a lot of research on forehand to prepare a research proposal based on which you can get funding. And you also need to have some supervisor. So it's a lot of own initiative then while getting a PhD position offered at the university. It's all done for you on forehand.
So which one did you have? Did you have to make it up completely on your own, or did someone offer you the position?
I got offered a PhD position, yes.
Oh.
I assume you have to be in touch with a professor for that, in order for that to happen. Like you didn't get an email while working at your job, like, oh, pling, do you want to do a PhD at the University of Twente? That's just an assumption.
No, I stayed in contact with my master assignment supervisor, Martin Toxopeus.
From the University of Twente.
From the University of Twente.
If you're not from the University of Twente.
Yeah, and that really helped getting a PhD position. I also applied for another PhD position at the University of Utrecht, but then it's really difficult to get it offered. There are so many applicants, and it's hard to stand out from the rest. But by this contact that I still had with Martin Toxopeus, it was quite easy to get this PhD position.
So if you want to do a PhD, it might be wise to be buddies with a professor.
Yes, it might be wise indeed. It makes life way easier.
Fair enough.
Are there any requirements connected to doing a PhD beforehand? So like, you have to have this specifically high grades, or probably knew that you had an interest in this topic?
Well, it's not necessarily that you need to have high grades or whatever. But I think that you are doing a PhD for 4 years, so it's a very long time. So you need to have certainly have a specific interest in this topic. Otherwise, you won't be able to finish those 4 years. Also, you need to think on a quite theoretical level, or to be able to think on a quite theoretical level, and also have the capabilities to go in quite some depth and not getting bored by it or whatever. You need to be persistent.
I was wondering, you talk about going in depth, thinking at a theoretical level. A friend of mine told me the other day she was a bit worried. She was doing a master thesis, and she was a bit worried about having to write the research proposal for that thesis. And when I asked why, she said, well, IDE here in Eindhoven isn't very academic. So she was a bit worried about her academic capabilities as an industrial design student. Do you experience that in the same way?
Yes, I think that as an industrial design engineer, you lack a bit of academic capabilities compared to other programs. Yeah. We learned something during the bachelor program, I think, about how to do research, how to do literature review, for example. But as an industrial design engineer, you are always doing quite practical things, and you barely ever apply these academic capabilities. But during my master thesis, I noticed that I really like to work on an academic level. I had some difficulties now and then, but I really liked it. And when you like it, you will be able to practice it and become good at it.
True. What did you like about academic work? Because the difficulties in my master's thesis I very much recognize. Also I do mechanical engineering as well, so that's not necessarily an industrial design thing. But what did you like about academic work?
I really like to work on this more conceptual level, I think. I believe that every great idea that we have can be somehow worked out and be applied in practice. We as a whole society are smart enough to do such things. So I'd rather stay on the more conceptual level, having a great start of the idea, a great concept, and then the process that come afterwards, I believe that it can be done. Please let others do it.
I think usually an industrial design engineer would be either more interested or better educated to do the second part. So once the fundamental idea is there, we think, okay, what can we do with this? How can this be of value to a user, to a customer, to society as a whole? But you prefer let's come up with some fundamentally interesting concepts.
Yes, indeed. But I think that these kind of aspects that other industrial design engineers maybe like more than I do can already be applied at the very beginning of this process.
Okay. How?
Well, you know it as well, I think, as industrial design engineers, or you were mechanical engineer.
I'm both. I'm both.
Both. Okay.
Weird.
But
Whoa. That's just rude.
Sorry.
But I think that's both. But I think that when you start designing, you already think about what the customer wants, how it can be technically designed, all these kind of steps, how it can be marketed in the end. Or at least it is not necessary, but I think when you do that, you come with a greater idea and a greater product in the end. So I think that you can already apply this at the beginning of your project, and thinking about these kind of things is what I really like. Elaborating on them, I believe that it can be done, and others may do it for me.
Don't you think it limits the options that you, or the solutions that you come up with? Because I think at fundamental level, like anything should be possible as long as physics allows it, right? But if you then already start thinking about what could a customer do with this, how do I take ecological effects into account, doesn't that limit the possible solutions that you come up with?
Yeah, maybe, but maybe I am indeed quite limited to my ideas. I'm not as creative in that sense as other industrial design engineers, I think.
Well, it wasn't intended to be a remark like that, but
no, but I think you have a good point. But I think I really like the applicable ideas that have really added value in society, in the market. And some industrial design engineers are indeed capable of coming up with crazy ideas that you never have thought of. And they are, I think, not that limited as I am sometimes. But I also hate a bit the ideas that are developed and then there's no market for it, or it doesn't really add anything to our daily lives or whatever.
It's not the generic. You don't do the generic design tasks. It sounds like that, right?
In a PhD or in my PhD specifically?
Well, we didn't really touch your PhD specifically, but I guess that at just a PhD as well, that you're not really doing any of the design work, but more, well, the academic going into depth about a specific idea.
No, I'm not sure if that's true, Bram. Because I actually asked my supervisor, like, yeah, I don't want to do research. I'm way more into designing stuff, when they talked about, do you want to do a PhD? And they said, well, you can actually do a PhD where you design something and actually develop something. Is that
That's true, indeed, yeah. You can actually develop or design something during your PhD, but it is a specific type of a PhD.
Right.
You can apply all kind of research methods during your PhD, whatever suits your topic. But I think I will also be applying design science research, it is called.
Okay.
And what you do then is you design something. I think in my case it will be a method, and then this method will be applied in a company or whatever suits your topic. And you test this method, and then you iterate multiple times. So you go back to designing stage and improve your method, and then apply it again and again and again. And that's also a way of doing research. And then in the end of your PhD project, you will have the final version of your method, which is proven to be applicable in practice. And that's a way of doing design during your PhD.
Check. And what was that called again? Design science research?
Yeah.
Shall we then get into your PhDs? Because your LinkedIn described that your PhD is about sustainable asset management. We were trying to come up with questions, also ask the rest of the podcast board or committee. and they didn't really know what sustainable asset management is. Now, we think it's maybe a bit related to product lifecycle, but can you shortly describe what your PhD is all about?
Yeah, well, assets are things that a company owns. So it can be machines, or it can be software. It can also be the people that they hire. All these kind of things are called assets. And these assets are used to create value for the company. So they are used for their business proposition, their value proposition. So they are not the products that they deliver to the market, but these assets are used to deliver a certain product or service to the market. So I am working at IDE'er. It's a Dutch grid operator. And they own all electricity grids in the Netherlands. So, for example, the transformers, cables, etc., to transport energy from the supplier to their customer. So these assets are used to create value, to deliver this service, to deliver energy to the customers. So that's what assets are. And during asset management, you work on how should we manage these assets. So when should we apply maintenance? Which assets should we choose? What are the risks? And how do we take these into account while managing these assets? When is their end of life? All these kind of decisions are to be made in the field of asset management. That field is already quite established. It exists for quite some time, and they are doing a great job in that. They are very experienced in that. But now energy transition is coming, sustainability is getting more and more important. And how do we integrate sustainability in this work field? How do we take sustainability into account when making these trade-offs, replacing or not, maintaining or not? What are the risks related to sustainability, etc.?
Cool. And you apply the sustainability to the asset management of IDE'er.
Yes, indeed.
All right. So it's specific for this company.
It is specific for this company. IDE'er is funding a part of the research, so I'm doing it for them. But to have a more valid end result, I will also apply my insights and my methods in other companies that also do asset management. Yeah.
So that's sort of a framework so other companies could use it as well.
Yes, indeed.
It's the method that you just described in the design science research.
Yes. Yeah.
Check. Okay. Henrike, before we get into the teaching stuff, we asked you, if you do a PhD, you usually have to teach something as well. Do you do that? And the answer was, generally, you have to do some education-related activity. You can do whatever you want. Have you started this already, or is that something that starts later in a PhD?
I've already started that. I have assisted Martin Toxopeus during the course Product Lifecycle. So it was mainly assisting during the lectures, answering questions, being available for the students for the questions, and also grading them at the end of the course. And I also started supervising one master student during his master assignment.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
How do you like that?
Yeah, that's really cool. I really like to work with students. Also, in my previous job, I had to supervise students. And I really like that since it allows me to also think on this more conceptual level and to think critically about what is your research question, what kind of activities logically follow from that question, etc. And I also like, and I didn't realize that, is that you can really benefit from supervising this master student. So it's not only telling him you need to do this or that or whatever.
No.
His topic is shaped in a certain way and selected in a certain way that it really contributes to my own research as well. So I can really benefit from the outcomes, but also from the learning process itself. So the things that he comes up with will really contribute to my research, which will allow me instead to focus more on other things. So in the end, I will have a broader scope covered. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds beneficial indeed.
Yeah.
But it also sounds like free labor.
I would not see it like that.
Then I was wondering, someone else came up to me the other day and he said to me, and I think this is very good, a question that hopefully you might have a good answer to, because like we said, you're not really doing the regular or the generic design, industrial design tasks, right?
Hmm.
And he does a specialization at the University of Twente, which he feels also takes him a bit away from the regular design, like making stuff beautiful, making stuff comfortable to use, etc. He said to me, "Well, it's all good that I'm moving away from that a little bit. I chose for that specifically, but now that I'm not the I design cool stuff designer, I don't know what value can I offer a company. I don't know how to explain that anymore." And I saw that you did the management of product development track, which is also quite well, it goes quite far away from the general design. What do you think like is the value you can offer if it's not the general design stuff?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I have been struggling with it a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, I won't describe myself as a typical industrial design engineer, as you might have noticed.
Mm-hmm.
I've always liked more the management of product development, more the broader sense, more from an holistic point of view than the actual designing and making nice looking things. But how to present yourself indeed to a company as an industrial design engineer has been very complicated for me. Indeed, if you just want to design a product, you can go to a company, I'm a product designer, and then they have a position for you and it will all be fine.
For the design engineer or the product design developer,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah, it is really well. I don't want to exaggerate or fill in things for others, but I think it's quite easy. That's what an industrial design engineer typically is. But I think as an industrial design engineer, you also learn to think from an holistic point of view, to think from multiple perspectives, multiple disciplines, to combine those into one integrated solution. So that's a strong point, I think, a strong capability of an industrial design engineer.
Mm-hmm.
That's more what I like about industrial design engineering, and that's more how I would like to position myself. And when finishing my master's, I really had a difficult time to position myself in that way. A lot of companies don't even know what industrial design engineering is. If they have some idea, they think there's design in the title.
Oh, you make
It
stuff
shall
beautiful,
be
right?
making beautiful stuff, and that's it. So that was really difficult, and I got the opportunity to stay at the company where I also did my master assignment, and I really had the opportunity to apply my skills and the skills that I really like in my job. But I also think that this PhD will allow me to further position myself. So after doing my PhD, I'm no longer this industrial design engineer, so someone that makes beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
But I think that I showed that I am capable of working in a field like asset management. Then you are more related to the management side. You are also more related to the maintenance side. That are concepts that are more well known and are more closely related to what I like. And also you show that you can, for example, develop a method, or so that the skills of an industrial design engineer can not only be applied to designing a product that looks beautifully, but can also be applied to processes or to methods or certain concepts in a much broader sense.
Maybe the management of product development shouldn't even be called an IDE'er anymore, because I do management of product development myself as well. And I noticed that we can really bring value to a company with things like risk management, lifecycle management, all these things.
Yeah.
But as long as we're called industrial designers, people will probably think that we're the product designer making things beautiful.
Yeah, but otherwise you would become a what's that called? A design engineer?
Yeah,
Right?
you
That's
mean
the bedrijfskunde?
no, industrial engineering.
Oh, industrial engineering.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think what you describe, Henrike, the holistic point of view, I think you have that on different levels, you could say. Because when I design a product, I also think about the customer, about different stakeholders, about the company, about the everything. So you take this holistic view as well, but then within the design process.
Indeed.
But I think what you describe on the management level is that same holistic view. So taking everyone into account, and you're educated to be able to talk to all the stakeholders.
Yeah.
And you take that holistic view and apply it to the design process itself, I think.
Yeah.
So I think there's a strong similarity between management of product design and actual product design. Because
Yes, I think so,
same design.
definitely. But I think I would not change the name of the study program or whatever. I think industrial design engineer fits most people that finish their degree at the University of Twente. But I think that industrial design engineering as a program might get some more visibility to business life and what an industrial design engineer can offer. And not necessarily on, oh, well, they can design beautiful products, but more on they are able to communicate with multiple disciplines, combine those, and make an integrated solution to that.
Yeah, I agree. But I did some course design histories, and I believe the actual subject of design engineering or industrial design isn't really that old. I believe it started like the 1970s, and it took like 10, 20, 30, well, until now for industry to actually know what the word industrial design, let alone what it actually means.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting that apparently there's still a big lack in familiarity in the industry with what an industrial design engineer is.
Yeah, and not only lack as you describe it, but I also think that when I was looking for positions after I finished my master's, you don't know what search terms you need to use. If you typically want to design a product, you can just look for positions that have something like product designer in the title. But when you want to apply it more to a management level, like I wanted, how can this be described?
I don't know, maybe process engineer or something?
Yeah, but when looking for process engineers, they typically expect the industrial engineers.
True.
And they expect you to have, very grounded statistical knowledge capabilities or whatever. And that's not what you as an industrial design engineer learn, or only very limited.
Yeah.
It's this combining of multiple disciplines, and it isn't a very known expertise, I think, in organizations.
All right. So how do you think we can improve that? Do you have any thoughts on that? How can we let the world know what people that study industrial design engineering can do, apart from having the entire world listen to the Icarus Idea?
Of course.
Of course.
Well, I think that we need some show off about what we can offer as industrial design engineers. And if we as a study program and as students collaborate more already during our studies with organizations. But I think we need to become more visible as a study program to the outside world, indeed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's something for all the symposium committees of the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Maybe
Or
we
the
can...
study directors.
Yeah.
Huh?
Hey, hint.
That's a good one for the study directors if we get them next episode.
Yeah.
Good point.
So if today Joris or I should decide I want to do a PhD, what do you think are some skills that are really necessary or really handy when going into the whole PhD process? Is it only the academic skills or?
Yeah, well, I'm now also thinking of one other thing. I specifically chose for an industrial PhD. So I'm doing my PhD in collaboration with a real organization. And that makes it quite practical. And I think it's good to mention that as well. You can indeed do a PhD only at the university, and then it becomes quite academic. And then indeed you need strong academic capabilities, doing research, think in a structured way, these kind of things. But well, I'm doing more of an industrial PhD. So besides those academic capabilities that you need to have, you also need to be a good listener to what the organization wants, come with solutions that are really applicable in the organization, that are of added value for this organization, and that are also capabilities that are,
basic industrial design engineer capabilities, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
Indeed. Yes. And I think that makes a PhD interesting for an industrial design engineer.
that you actually are quite suitable.
Yeah.
Well, who would have thought?
Yeah. You can still do a PhD, Joris.
Well.
Maybe.
I'm still in the phase where Henrike was when she finished her master's, where you're like, no, I want to do real stuff in a real company, and I'm not going to do research.
All right.
Yeah, but I will get cured from that in about 2 years, I heard, and then I'll do a PhD.
Yeah. Cool.
Can't wait.
All right. Let's go to the final question. And we always ask this everyone. What would your advice be for everyone listening, or for yours, or for me?
Well, I think you need, as an industrial design engineer, you should not be discouraged by this fact that this thing that I described earlier. It can be quite difficult to come into a position that really fits your capabilities and your interests as an industrial design engineer. But I think you should be persistent in this and really follow your dreams. You, as an industrial design engineer, really have an added value to organizations. Be persistent in showing this and finding the position where you really indeed can show these capabilities.
Okay. In that way, if everyone keeps doing that, in that way, maybe in a few years, the industry will learn what an industrial design engineer could be.
Yeah, and I also think that this will only increase coming years. I think that we as a society are facing more and more problems that require a multidisciplinary approach and require indeed the skills that an industrial design engineer has.
Yeah, we heard that from Daan Roosgaarde as well. He said similar things, that there's just so many problems that an industrial design engineer can solve nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there might be a beautiful spot for an industrial design engineer in our society in the future.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Boom. And with that awesome quote, cheesy as hell, let's round off the interview. Thank you, listener, listening person, human thing, for listening. If you change your mind about maybe doing a PhD, let us know why.
Yeah, we'll put another poll after the episode is out.
Yeah.
Everyone's saying yes.
We got like 70% saying, oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. We're convinced now.
But thank you for listening. Let us know what you think. Share this with anyone that might be interested in doing a PhD. And you think, whoa, could be super useful if you listen to this.
Yeah. Send us a DM if you need any extra information.
Exactly. We're always open for DMs. But for now, Henrike.
You can also send questions to me if it's specifically about PhD or choosing.
We'll put an email in the show notes.
Let's go. Maybe some email address.
Yeah.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
Henrike, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for the conversation.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You're welcome as well.
No, thank you. All right.